Hello everyone, this is Jose32 and today I'm doing something a little bit different. This is my review slash rant on Man of Steel, the new Superman movie, sort of new. I just saw it, seen it a couple of times now since I got the DVD the other day, and I think myself it's pretty good. But I see a lot of negative comments on imdb.com, and I wanted to address some of those comments and people giving them scores like 1 out of 10. I mean, I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10. But I definitely would say, 7 or 8 out of 10. I think a lot of people just don't like it because it's different. But that is good. Who wants to see the same old thing over and over and over again? And I didn't see a whole lot of complaints when Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, did something different. I didn't see a whole lot of complaints when Smallville was doing things that were different, yet people are complaining about this one being different. And it bugs me just a little bit. I can't find those reviews though now. Okay, here's one. And oh, by the way, there might be spoilers, so if you don't want to know anything about the movie because you want to watch it still, you might not want to watch this. Or you might want to, whatever. There's one reviewer who made lots of complaints and talks about plot inconsistencies and what he calls outright idiocies. First of all, he complains about how Krypton is going to be destroyed and no one can be saved except one baby because they don't have any spacecraft. But, oh wait, they do have spacecraft. And they got somewhat spare technology to use it to send criminals into space. But that isn't a spacecraft, it's a phantom zone. So, your point makes absolutely no sense. And if they didn't do that and provide enemies for Superman later in the movie, there would be no point to the movie. Then this person talks about Jor-El stealing the Codex, which has the DNA of all the Kryptonian race. And he questions why there's no backup copies. Well, who cares? Go figure, there's no backup copies. Maybe there was. Maybe there isn't. And what about actual Kryptonians who are running around destroying things? Well, the idea was to save the Kryptonian race, not to kill them in order to do it. Then he complains about how Clark happens to just hear about some top secret ice digging up north and decides to go there. Well, and how would he know to go there? Well, he always knows how to go there. Perhaps he was getting some kind of a sense, a feeling to send him there. I mean, Clark Kent has always known to go north every time, every movie, every show. Why would this be any different? And then he complains about how Lois Lane is just conveniently there on tour. Well, she's an investigative reporter. There was something to investigate, so she was there. And he talks about how the spacecraft from up north was never used again, even though it could have been used to later on in the movie. But I don't know, for whatever reason it wasn't used. Why are we complaining about it? Then this person is talking about how when Clark is taken to General Zod's ship, he loses his powers because he supposedly needs the gases on Earth's atmosphere to gain and retain his powers. Yet he's repeatedly shown operating in a vacuum of space. No, he doesn't need Earth's atmosphere to retain his powers. If you know anything about Superman, you know he gets his powers from the sun. The reason why he was not able to retain his powers on his ship is not because he was in outer space whatsoever. It's because this ship came directly from Krypton. It had Krypton's atmosphere on it, and in essence it's like sticking him in a ship made out of Kryptonium. It's going to affect him. So, I don't know. Obviously this person doesn't know a whole lot or doesn't care. Then they're talking about how there was massive damage caused to all these buildings during a fight scene that would have created massive loss of life. Why wouldn't Superman try to lure his enemies far away from the city, fight over the ocean, in the mountains, whatever? That's a good point, and I think there was a lot of destruction, a little bit too much, unrealistic. However, how do you exactly try to lure a guy away? You know, it really doesn't happen. And they're in the middle of a fight. They're not gonna play cat and mouse or whatever. Then he talks about later on how Superman flies into the gravity beam and the world ends in where his power serum exists because those are like the conditions it's creating are like those of Krypton. But somehow he just decides to do it. Well, he was using all his willpower to do it as Superman would and has done many times before. And then it says, in the end, when Zod threatens a family of a father, mother, and child or children with his heat vision, and Superman just kills him, and had been completely unable to damage him until then. And the person says again, just deciding to do something makes it happen. He didn't just decide to do it. He had no other choice. I mean, yeah, sir, he could have put his hands over Zod's eyes, but I'm not sure how much effect that would have had. Or he could have tried to do something else. It was a last-ditch effort, and so he snapped his neck and he killed him. I just don't like these people making comments that are just stupid and just for the hell of it, you know? And then there's other things, some which don't really make sense, which I can sort of understand. But complaining about Lois Lane suddenly appearing or being there for whatever reason makes, no sense. A scene where Jonathan Kent sees young Clark running around with a cape and gets all misty-eyed. And he said, well, how did he associate a kid playing with a cape with anything at all? Well, kids have been playing with capes and pretending to be superheroes for a long time, and obviously Jonathan knew that that was Clark's future, and it made him misty-eyed. Then there's other comments. This one person says that the movie doesn't portray what Superman stands for. For the last 75 years, he has been a pacifist. He just doesn't kill no matter what. And in this movie, he does. Well, you have to look at it this way. That has to start somewhere. There has to be a reason for it. And when he snapped General Zod's head and killed him, that was his reason. That put him over the edge and made him decide he wasn't going to kill anyone else. You can see when he did that, he screamed out. He was not happy that he did that, but he had no choice. He didn't want to do it, but he did it. And he's never going to kill anyone again. Okay, then this person complains about how the blue suit was given to Superman by Jor-El, and he says this hasn't happened in any other version of Superman, and it's always Martha Kent that gave the suit to him. Really? Obviously this person has not seen any other Superman. If you go back to the first Superman movie with Christopher Reeve, he goes to his Fortress of Solitude, goes on a journey for 12 years with Jor-El, and then when he comes back, he's wearing the suit. Martha Kent had nothing to do with it whatsoever. Same with Smallville. Martha had nothing to do with it whatsoever, as far as I can recall. I could be wrong. The only time Martha ever made a suit was in Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. And in that one, he didn't even go up north, as far as I can recall. They didn't make any mention of Jor-El. They didn't make any mention of him being Kal-El that I know of. It was quite different. But nobody complained about that. Then he complains about how the suit was found in his abandoned Kryptonian ship, and the ship was found to be over 3,000 years old, so it must have landed there over 3,000 years. And they say that Clark's age is something to be only 33. Does that mean that Jor-El sent the ship to Earth 3,000 years ago with a suit he wanted to give as a gift to his son 3,000 years later? Absolutely not. What this is, well, first of all, let's look at this. In the first movie, when Clark goes to the Fortress of Solitude, his father tells him that he has been on Earth for 18 of Earth's years, and that he would have been dead for thousands of years, and Clark is actually, Kal-El is actually thousands of years old as well. So Clark in this movie could theoretically be a lot more than 33 years, at least in Kryptonian years. Also, just because it was sent to Earth, it might have been sent to Earth 3,000 years ago in Kryptonian years, doesn't mean it was necessarily 3,000 Earth years. Never mind that fact. Just because it was sent to Earth 3,000 years ago, doesn't mean it was sent with that suit to give as a gift to his son 3,000 years later. That was simply Clark went there to that ship, found this message from his father, interacted with him, and got this suit. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter how long the ship was there. That was just a then and now moment. It's not like it was pre-planned or premeditated. He didn't send the ship there 3,000 years ago in order to do this. It just happened. Then there's a big complaint about Jonathan Kent dying in a tornado. He dies of a heart attack, not in a tornado. So what? Who cares if he dies differently? It's different. It's good. You want to see Jonathan Kent die of a heart attack a million times? Fine, but it's the same old thing. It's going to get boring and repetitive. They said, we'll have him die in a tornado, and I liked it. It was different. I like how Jonathan, he rescued a family dog and I think another family. Injured his leg after being trapped in a vehicle for a few minutes. And then he was engulfed by the tornado, all the while telling his Clark, don't worry about me. It's not time yet. Clark could have saved him. He could have. But his dad didn't want him to do it. He felt he wasn't ready to do it yet. And it was the right decision in the end. Whether you like how he died, who cares? In Smallville, he did that. They had Jonathan become governor of Kansas before dying of a heart attack. That was different. Nobody complained about that. And then Martha became the governor. In Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, Jonathan didn't even die, and nobody complained about that. So why are we complaining about how he dies? It's not a big deal, and it's different. If we see the same thing over and over, it's going to get boring and repetitive. I'm already having the same feelings about Spider-Man. In the first Spider-Man movie, Uncle Ben died after being killed by a car thief. In the second movie, he was killed by a thug again in similar circumstances. What's going to happen when they remake Spider-Man again in 20 years? Is he going to die again by the hands of another thug? It gets kind of boring and repetitive. Why not change it? Who cares what the comic books say? It doesn't have to be done exactly the same. A lot of what they did on Smallville was different than the comic books. Same with Lois and Clark and the Adventures of Superman. It doesn't have to be the same. And there's tons of comic books out there. There's tons of stuff in the movie that they got from the comic books. And same with the other shows, and that's that. Then there's other complaints talking about how Clark supposedly took 33 years to adjust to his powers on Earth, but Zod does it in minutes. He did not spend 33 years adjusting. It took him not very long to adjust to each one of his abilities, and he adjusted to most of them when he was a little kid, except for flying, and that didn't take long either. And so I don't see what that comment is all about. Then there's a complaint about how Superman saved the guy falling from a helicopter, but then let the helicopter crash and kill the pilot and the remaining crew. Well, this goes to show that Superman can't save everyone, and he was in the middle of a battle. He didn't have time to react to every single thing. Another big complaint is that he was coughing up blood on the ship. He was bleeding while on the ship, and that kryptonite makes him weak, but it doesn't make him bleed, and blah blah. He never does bleed. Well, obviously you've never seen Smallville. Clark bled lots of times. He lost his powers and bled. He bled because of kryptonite. He got shot by a kryptonite bullet, you know. He did cough up blood. It's not the first time he's bled. Just because he didn't bleed in the previous movies because they were PG doesn't mean he doesn't bleed. And also, kryptonite can kill Clark or Superman, Kal-El. It doesn't just weaken him. And then he says, this person goes on to say, believe me when I say this movie was good, but it just wasn't Superman. Then what the hell were you watching? This makes no sense. It's just a random guy in a blue suit flies around killing people. He killed General Zod because he had no choice. He doesn't fly around killing people. For goodness sake. There's this comment, Jonathan always will protect Clark's secret, but never say it was better to let children die because of it. Never. I don't really understand. Then they're complaining about Jor-El dying because he was stabbed, and then Laura dies alone. They both died. What difference does it make? Oh, Jonathan apparently died in a hurricane. That wasn't a hurricane. That was a tornado. And Clark didn't do anything because Jonathan told him not to do anything. Clark becomes Superman in less than 5 minutes only for wearing a suit. Clark is Superman with or without this suit. You're an idiot. Apparently Lois Lane tells almost half the planet that Clark is Superman. She even goes to the Kent house looking for Clark with the police. She didn't tell almost half the planet. A few people knew about it. And then I know a lot of people complaining about Perry White being African American. Who cares? That's just being racist. And, you know, it's just ridiculous, all these complaints. I think it's a good movie. I recommend seeing it. I think change is good. This movie was good. It could have been better, but it was good. That's what I got. I'll see you next time. Sorry about the long rant.